Hi there, everybody. I first got Final Fantasy VII for Christmas back in 1997, like 25-something years ago, along with a PlayStation back when I was a sophomore in high school, and I fell in love with it, especially once I got to the world map, because the one portion that I never really liked was the Midgar section, and unfortunately, the first part, Remake, took place entirely in Midgar, but now Rebirth starts taking place once you've left Midgar. That is my favorite portion of the game, so I am super hyped to see if Square Enix did this portion justice. But before we do begin, I do want to let you know that if you're new to the channel, please be sure to hit that subscribe button in order to get more top 10 lists, news, and reviews, and also smash that like button to show your love. And now, let's talk about this game in the most spoiler-free way possible. First things first, let me just go over some of the quality of life additions and options that are available to you straight from the start, such as 3 different difficulty modes, easy, normal, and dynamic, which changes based upon how well you're playing the game. That's super interesting, and I've never seen that option before. Also, and this is key for me, you have a choice of either a minimap or one of those like little tracking markers at the top of the screen. Personally, those tracking things are completely useless to me and I hate them, so I went with the minimap. Then, I guess Square Enix was looking at all the Twitter drama that happened in the last couple of weeks because they added a feature that would turn that little like yellow guided terrain option on or off. I of course kept it on because I'm 41 years old, have patience problems, and I'm pretty much blind as a bat, so I need all the help that I can get. The game opens right where Remake left off, with the gang escaping Midgar, but I'm not going to be spoiling any of the story here. That's all for you to find out. Just be aware that the old story that you know and love remains, well, mostly the same, but there are plenty of surprises still waiting for you. Also, little tiny bits that seemed inconsequential the first time around have now been massively expanded, while some other things have been completely eliminated, mostly for the better. For instance, towns are no longer just some like little blip on the map that you run into, talk to a couple of NPCs, grab some upgrades, and then leave within like 10 or so minutes. They are now massive, multi-hour affairs, filled to the brim with side quests, interesting NPCs, different nooks and crannies to explore, and then what can only be described as like bonding events between your characters to raise or lower their affection levels. This really does serve to make you fall in love with the team all over again. And even some party members that you may not have appreciated the first time around, like, Yuffie, for me, have been rewritten to just be a lot more lovable and endearing, and I was like smiling the whole time through. And hey y'all, if you are liking this so far, please be sure to subscribe for some more great content. There's also moments of joy interspersed with moments of seriousness here, which is great because nowadays, it always seems like RPGs are either like super duper ultra serious, or just like the most ridiculous stupid thing that you've ever seen in your entire life. There's not really much of like a middle ground any longer. But this is a throwback to simpler times, back whenever you could tell a serious adult story, but also have some more lighthearted moments. Like for example, there's an added scene where you run into Rude over in Yunnan, and at first you think like, oh no, he's going to attack me. But instead, you walk into the bar and you see him like singing and dancing around with the rest of his little bald baddies. It just came out of like left field and I just busted out laughing. As large and expansive as the towns are though, they have nothing on the open world map regions. They are replete with updated music and gorgeous scenic spots. The attention to detail is just astounding. One of my biggest gripes with Remake was just kind of how like on rails it all was, but Rebirth is decidedly not. This is like going from Final Fantasy XIII's hallway simulator to Final Fantasy XIII-2's massive open worlds and embarrassment of choices. In this manner at least, the two games are like night and day. I've said it before and I'll say it again. World maps are pretty much my favorite part of RPGs. I just love them. I love the sense of freedom that you have, the openness, and all the exploration. I love poking around and seeing what there is to find, and all these massive open regions here really do scratch that itch. I am not even joking whenever I say that each open region will take a good like 10 to 15 hours to fully complete just by themselves. There's just so much to see and do. From activating the Chocobo stops to the Remna Wave towers to assessing all the enemies for Chadley to scouring all the discovery points for treasures and finding the hidden shrines for the summons, and then there's even like life stream springs popping up, which are probably some of the most beautiful areas I've ever seen in gaming. All these regions just feel so massive and almost never ending and sprawling, and they're just filled to the brim with content. Thankfully, To make it a bit more manageable though, fast travel is available through the forms of chocobos. And of course, there's a lot more than just like your basic bitch yellow chocobo. You'll be getting to see all of your favorites from the original game here too. But in addition to your trusty bird, there's fast travel points on the map that you can just like immediately warp to. And this is key. You can go back to previous chapter areas once you leave that chapter. It's not like once you leave Calm Grasslands and move on to the Mithril Mine that you're never able to go back to the Grasslands. Don't get me wrong though, you can't immediately go back, and there will be times that your fast travel will be locked, but after a certain point in the game, you'll be able to go on back and finish up any and all side quests, so don't worry about like missables here. In a major juxtaposition though, while traveling can be very fast on the overworld, it can be mind-numbingly slow whenever you're in towns, especially whenever you're inside of a house or crawling through an area, or God forbid, climbing. I remember when I was a kid, and technology had just made the jump from the NES to the SNES around when I was about 10 or so years old. One of the major things that I noticed back then was just how much quicker you walked in an SNES RPG as compared to those on the NES. And from then on, RPGs have embraced speed, introducing run buttons or even turbo modes lately, and I love being able to move around with the Flash. But I guess Square didn't get the memo here, because if you're ever inside of a building, you just walk at a snail's pace, and if I'm running around a town, I don't want to have to like bump into an NPC and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me," and then slow down. And I know it's for realism or whatever, but I just want that NPC to vanish off the face of the earth and let me bulldoze right on through them. And don't even get me started on the climbing portions, especially in the Mithril Mine. My god, I just wanted to push Barrett off the ledge to his death just to make him move his ass. All that is a minor nitpick, but I feel like it's my obligation as a reviewer to bring up things that I liked and I disliked. But one thing that I really didn't have any complaints about was the combat. I like turn-based RPGs, action RPGs, strategy RPGs. I mean, as long as the game is fun, I can find joy in it. And the combat here is incredibly fun, and it's just like you remember from the first game, except that they also added in synchronized attacks, which are like dual techs from Chrono Trigger, which you can use with your different party members. But what it really does though is to encourage you to actively swap around your team and not just control Cloud the entire time, because the more abilities and skills that you use with each character, the more synergy points that you'll get, and in turn, the more synergy attacks that you'll be able to pull off. So while in the last game, I was super guilty of just controlling Cloud exclusively, here I really am trying to break that habit and play around with the other party members to ensure that I can use all those delicious dual techs. Another addition, which is kind of like combat adjacent, is the ability to customize your characters through the use of a skill tree. And with each level that they gain, they'll gain 5 skill points that you can invest into their tree however you like. So you can customize them in whichever way you see fit. Do you want to make Barrett more of a mage? Go ahead. What about Arieth as a physical attacker? Well, you can do that too. I don't know why though, but you can. You can really build them how you've always wanted them to be, which is just so apropos, since you could do that in the original game too. But there, you did it with like your materia that you equipped it. And speaking of materia, remember how in the original game whenever you loaded a character down with like green materia, it lowered all their physical stats? Well, now that magic materia doesn't really affect stats at all. Instead, just summon materia affects your stats, and in different ways too. It might raise your magic, while some might raise your physical attack power, some your defense. It all just depends on the materia that you have equipped. The weapon system has been changed around too, because now all weapons have their own unique abilities, and the more often that you fight with that weapon and use those unique abilities, the more that you'll raise your proficiency with them. And whenever you max it out, you'll be able to use that ability even whenever you don't have the weapon equipped. It's just yet another feather in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's cap. And while we're over here talking about customization, let's also talk about item transmutation. It is the obligatory crafting system of Rebirth, because as we all know, every single RPG needs crafting. If you couldn't tell, I'm rolling my eyes, but real talk, I actually liked this crafting system. You know why? Because it's simple. As you're running around the world, you're going to see all sorts of crafting materials lying around. You just grab them as you go. And whenever you have a spare moment, you can check out what you can craft. But there's more to it than that. The more that you craft and the more crafting experience that you earn, the more items will unlock. Whenever I say items, I'm not just talking about like stupid potions. I'm talking about accessories and weapons too, so don't ignore it. It really is worth your while to invest some time in this and then hunt down those rarer ingredients on the map. Now, let's also take a minute to talk about the minigames. I swear to God, there are more minigames here than in a Mario Party game. But for the most part, they are not boring drudgery minigames like in, Breath of Fire 4. They're actually fun. For the most part, you will find them in the towns, as I feel like this was their way of making the towns more memorable. And while there's plenty added here, they also changed older minigames to be a lot more fun, and even completely eliminated some of the more absolutely horrendous ones, like those Priscilla minigames. The CPR one is now gone, and instead of having to a pixel-perfect standing point for the dolphin to lift you up into Upper Yunnan, now you get to ride around on the dolphin like a racing game. It's just so much nicer. It really is just these little things that just elevate the experience and just lets you know that the developers knew what they were doing and they wanted this experience to be as magical as they could possibly make it for you. Then there's the main minigame, Queen's Blood. And I really do feel like this card game has finally topped Triple Triad. It's pretty sweet. Reminded me a lot of Asoa from Star Ocean 6. Basically here, you put your cards down on the board, taking turns with your opponent. And each card has a different power level, which increases your overall strength. Some cards also have special abilities such as powering up other cards or allowing you to play supremely powerful cards on the board. Then, at the end of the match, whoever has the most points on the horizontal lines will win the game. It does sound simple in theory, but it's actually really complex. And honestly, I need to really learn this because I am admittedly terrible at it, and no matter how much I try, I can never really seem to win. Maybe I'm just a dumb bum, but whatever. The original Final Fantasy VII was a straight-up masterpiece, and has been revered for over 25 years now. I mean, it is single-handedly credited with opening up the floodgates of JRPGs to the West and making Final Fantasy a household name. So yeah, the developers had huge shoes to fill in remaking this game, but I can tell you now with confidence that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has not only lived up to all of my expectations, but has exceeded them. Any little minor complaints and nitpicks that I have are nothing in comparison to the absolute joy that I experienced with this gem over the past month. Thus far, it is easily my game of the year and is going to take quite a bit to top it. I do hope that you enjoyed this review, and I'd also like to know how you feel about the game, and do you agree or disagree with me? Let me know in the comments, and if you like what is here on the channel, please be sure to follow me over on the Twitter and join my Patreon for early access to videos and behind the scenes photographs. This has been David, and if you like this, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.